Hi everyone! If you've ever wondered how Chinese characters were created, this video will give you the key. Thousands of years ago, ancient Chinese people invented 4 ways to create Chinese characters. These 4 ways explain how each character was born, how it looks, and even why it means what it means. Ready? Let's begin our journey into the logic behind Chinese characters. The first one, 象形字 Pictographs. These are the oldest and most direct type of Chinese characters. Now imagine this. You are an ancient person sitting in a field, enjoying the beautiful view of nature. Suddenly, you feel the urge to record what you say. How would you record something like the sun? You might draw a simple circle to show its shape, and then add a dot in the middle to represent its brightness. And there you go. That's 日. 日, the earliest character for the sun. There are many characters like this, like 月 for the moon, 山 for mountain, 水 for water, 云 for cloud, and 雨 for rain. Then you look at yourself, your body, and create characters like 耳, 目, 口, 手, 足. You notice animals around you too, maybe a rabbit, an insect, a tiger, a horse, or even an elephant, so you draw them. That's how 兔, 虫, 虎, 马, 象 were born. But not everything was easy to draw. For example, you scratch something like this and your friend asks, "Is that a feather?" You say, "No, it's not." So you add an eye underneath it. Ah, now people can say it's an eyebrow. That's the character 眉. 眉 means eyebrow. Here's another one. If you draw this shape alone, no one knows what you mean. But if you put it on top of a tree, people realize it's the fruit growing on the tree. That's 果. 果 means fruit. See, sometimes you just need a little background or context. But anyway, these are all pictures based on real things. They are vivid, virile, and kind of cute. That's why we call them pictographs. But you might be wondering, are there pictographs for abstract ideas too? Actually, yes. For example, a person with open arms means big, 大, 大. A tall building means tall, 高, 高. So yes, there are a few that express abstract concepts, but only a small number. Over time, these pictographs became more and more simplified and abstract, but if you look closely, you can still recognize their original shapes. But what do you think is the limitation of pictographs? They're simple, they're fun to look at, they work great for nouns, especially everyday things you can actually see. But what about more abstract or complex ideas? How do you create characters for those? Now let me introduce the second kind of characters, 指示字, simple ideographs. For example, how do you express above and below? Here's a simple line that represents the ground. When you add a short stroke above that line, it becomes above, up, 上, 上. When you add a stroke below that line, it becomes below or down, 下, 下. 上 and 下 are abstract ideas, things you can't really draw. So instead of draw the object itself, Asian people use symbols or simple marks to indicate a concept. These are called ideographs, or 指示字, which literally means to point to a matter. Let's look at another example. Here's a knife. Now, how do you express a sharp edge of the blade? Maybe you'd draw a forest and show lots of trees being chopped down to show how sharp it is. No. Our Asian ancestors were much lazier than that. Instead of drawing the whole story, they just add a tiny line to point out the key part. Simple, right? That's how the character 认 was created. That's the beauty of ideographs. They don't just draw, they explain. They take a picture and add meaning through position or a small mark. These marks help people move from drawing what they saw to expressing what they thought. But even so, there were not many ideas you could express just by pointing with little lines or dots. So the number of ideographs is actually very limited, only about a dozen or so. Yeah. So the next big step in the evolution of Chinese writing was combining ideas together, and that's where 会意字 compound ideographs come in. Now things get creative. Some characters I mentioned in my previous video, like 明, 南, 京, 彩, and 修, are all 会意字. I've dropped the link here in case you haven't seen it yet. Now check this out. This is a hand, and this is a person. A hand grabs a person. What does that mean? Did you play that game as a kid where the police chase the bad guy? The bad guy runs ahead, and when you catch up, you grab him with your hand. So this character actually means to catch up. To catch up. Great. Oh, this is a fun one. Take a look at this word, 及时, 及时, which means in time or timely. Let's break it down. 及 means to catch up, and 时 means time. So 及时 literally means to catch up with time. Means in time or timely, right? Makes perfect sense. 会意字 are created by combining different characters to form a new one. This method is very good for expressing complex ideas or rich cultural meanings. Actually, in Chinese, 会意字 have a big family, which is great news for you. Once you learn some common basic characters, learning new ones becomes so much easier and faster. Now the last one is 形声字. 形声字, Phono-semantic Compounds. Now this one is the most important group. These characters are called 形声字. Each of them has two parts. One part shows the meaning, called the semantic radical. The other part shows the sound, called the phonetic radical. Now some examples. Here is the character 知, 知. Okay, in ancient China, officials' duty was to listen to people's opinions. So if we add the ear radical r, then this word becomes 直. 直 means duty. If we add the silk radical, which related to silk or threads, it becomes 织. 织 meaning to weave. And if we add the cloth radical, 金, it becomes 志. 志 meaning a flag or banner. In all of these words, 知 is the phonetic part. It hints at the pronunciation, while the other radicals are the semantic parts, giving us clues about meaning. Now let's look at another set. 西, 湖, 阳, 善, 河. They all have the 3 dots of water, 三点水. That's the semantic radical, showing they all have something to do with water. The remaining part in each character is the phonetic radical, suggesting the pronunciation. Alright, but the pronunciation of the phonetic radical isn't always exactly the same as the new character. Sometimes the tone changes, like in 直, 智, 善. And sometimes the sound only stays similar, like 和, 可. Actually, when these characters were created, their sounds were the same. But as the language evolved, the pronunciation of some characters like 可 changed, while others like 和 didn't. That's why they don't always match perfectly today. But what is really interesting is that in some original dialects, the old pronunciations is still preserved. Pretty cool, right? And here's the most amazing part. Over 90% of all Chinese characters are 形声字. So whenever you see a character made up of two distinct parts, chances are it's a 形声字. And if it is, you can often guess the general meaning from the semantic part and the pronunciation from the phonetic part. Of course, it's not always 100% accurate. So if you mispronounced it, hey, don't tell people I taught you that. Okay, now let's review. The four main ways Chinese characters were created are 象形, drawing what you say, 指示, showing abstract ideas, 会意, combining meanings, and 形声, combining sound and meaning. These methods are not just the foundation of the entire Chinese writing system, but also a great way for you to understand the logic, creativity, and beauty of the language, and to remember the Chinese characters better. So next time you see a Chinese character, don't just think it as a random strokes. Think of it as a tiny piece of art, a story that has been told for over 3,000 years. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more Chinese language stories. And I will see you in the next one. 再见啦!